Welcome back to the show. My name's Mark Nixon. This week has already started off with fireworks. You're not going to be able to sleep this week. Danielle Smith just delivered the absolute best speech I've ever seen a politician make in Canada. It is so good. Is Alberta going to separate from Canada? And Mark Carney just landed in Washington, D.C. And get this, Donald Trump said today he doesn't even know why he's coming. His trolling never ends. And the Longest Ballot Initiative is at it again, but this time they're doing double the insanity. I got a couple more news items. Let's go. We're going to start things off with Danielle Smith. I fully recommend that you watch the full 18 minutes. I'm not going to put you through that. We're just going to see a couple of the highlights, and then we're going to discuss it.
My fellow Albertans, today I wish to speak to you about the future of Alberta and Canada. Albertans have always been loyal, proud, and generous Canadians. We love Canada. We have fought wars and died defending Canada. We've opened our doors wide for millions of our fellow Canadians searching for opportunity, many of whom stay and become Albertan, and many who return home to their native province. All have been welcomed with open arms. Our province has contributed hundreds of billions of dollars more to the federal treasury for use in other parts of the country than we'll ever receive back in benefits. We have allowed this to occur because, quite frankly, we know how blessed our province is with an endowment of natural resources that no other country on earth possesses. And we want all of our friends, families, and fellow Canadians across the country to benefit from it. We don't ask for special treatment or handouts. We just want to be free. Free to develop and export that incredible wealth of resources we have for the benefit of our families and future generations. Free to pursue opportunities with the ideals of entrepreneurship, hard work, and innovation that have become synonymous with the name of our province. Freedom to choose how best to provide healthcare, education, and other needed social services to our people, even if it's done differently than what Ottawa has in mind. Strong and free is more than just our provincial motto. It represents who we are and how we want to live as a people. And that is why Albertans are so frustrated with the direction of our country. For the last 10 years, successive Liberal governments in Ottawa, supported by their new Democrat allies, have unleashed a tidal wave of laws, policies, and political attacks aimed directly at Alberta's free economy, and in effect, against the future and livelihoods of our people. They have blocked new pipelines with C-69, cancelled multiple oil and gas projects, and banned the very tanker ships needed to carry those resources to new markets. They have stacked an oil and gas production cap on top of a crippling industrial carbon tax, making new energy and agricultural projects economically impossible to pursue without massive subsidies from governments, which Ottawa has failed to provide and which our taxpayers cannot afford. This onslaught of anti-energy, anti-agriculture, and anti-resource development policies have scared away global investments to the tune of $500 billion, driving those investments and jobs out of Alberta and Canada to much more attractive investment climates in the United States, Asia, and the Middle East. Having traveled much of the world these past few years, it is evident that Canada is not viewed as an attractive place to invest in resource development, manufacturing, or agriculture because of our high carbon taxes, endless red tape, and the uncertainty and chaos brought about by these and other federal government policies. As a result, Canada has fallen to dead last in economic growth among industrialized nations. The world looks at us like we've lost our minds. We have the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country on earth, and yet we landlock them, sell what we do produce to a single customer to the south of us, while enabling polluting dictatorships to eat our lunch. For Albertans, these attacks on our province by our own federal government have become unbearable. As I said, these policies have cost Albertans roughly $500 billion in investment, and that loss is growing daily. It has and will continue to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs, robbing countless Albertans and other Canadians of their means of providing for their families. It has cost us a decade of opportunities and tens of billions in lost royalties that could have been invested in the health, education, infrastructure, and social services Albertans and Canadians need. And what's worse, Ottawa continues onward with more destructive policies. They've imposed net zero mandates on our natural gas-based power grid, causing investment in reliable generation from natural gas to flee, thereby endangering the future stability of our power grid and risking future blackouts and spikes in electricity costs for Alberta families and businesses. They've attacked our food producers with methane taxes, onerous regulations on fertilizer, electric vehicle mandates, and many other destructive policies that have hiked costs on our farmers and ranchers and driven billions of dollars of investment in agriculture elsewhere. They've interfered in provincial jurisdiction time and again, from taking over the regulation of plastics to mandating how we operate childcare, healthcare, and dental care, to harassing law-abiding firearms owners, to dozens of other examples of unconstitutional interference. And of course, Alberta has fought back. We always have and always will. We passed the Sovereignty Within a United Canada Act and have invoked it twice to protect Albertans as best we can from the effects of the net zero electricity regulations and the energy production cap. We beat the feds in court on both the No New Pipelines Law, C-69, and their attempt to regulate plastics, though they have ignored both court decisions to this point. And we have just announced a court challenge on the net zero electricity regulations and are further preparing to also challenge the energy production cap. We continue to do all in our power to counteract Ottawa's chill on investment in energy, agriculture, and our other job sectors through various tax cuts and incentive programs, which greatly strain the provincial budget. We have fought these attacks from Ottawa furiously and have won some important battles, but the lost opportunities, jobs, and futures of so many Albertans are costly and demoralizing, as are the growing number of Eastern politicians who choose to openly demonize and target Alberta for political gain. That is why a large majority of Albertans are so deeply frustrated with the results of last week's federal election. It's not that our preferred candidate and party lost. That happens in a democracy. It's that the same Liberal government with almost all the same ministers responsible for our nation's inflation, housing, crime, and budget crisis, and that oversaw the attack on our provincial economy for the past 10 years, have been returned to power. Now, as we all know, one thing has changed. We have a new Prime Minister. And I will say that in my first conversation with him since the election, he had some promising things to say about changing the direction of his government's anti-resource policies. However, Albertans are more of a actions speak louder than words kind of people. So while I will in good faith work with Prime Minister Mark Carney on unwinding the mountain of destructive legislation and policies that have ravaged our provincial and national economies this past decade, until I see tangible proof of real change, Alberta will be taking steps to better protect ourselves from Ottawa.
That's quite a bit. Her speech was so well delivered because she is bang on about all of it. The insanity from Ottawa preventing Alberta from being a prosperous province. Things got to change. Canada is about to break. Danielle Smith listed 4 items that she expects Ottawa to accept. Otherwise, Alberta's next move is they're going to get to decide their path forwards. Danielle Smith is a smart, strategic leader. What she did today is a masterclass in political negotiations. They're probably going to study this in universities. She laid out 4 non-negotiable items, and we'll go over it. And she says, just give Mark Carney a chance. He's a new face. But here's the genius part. Everything that she's asking for, absolutely everything, is everything the Liberals have done to Alberta for the last decade. So what exactly is she asking for? It's basically no more Liberal government, at least the historical Liberal government. Is there a new Liberal government moving forwards? And let's not forget, Mark Carney has been the senior or economic advisor for the Liberal government for the last 5 years. He's been one of the loudest global voices for net zero around the world. He was on the WEF board. He was the architect for so many of Justin Trudeau's economic policies and climate policies. And let's not forget, Stephen Guilbeault is still in his cabinet. Oh yeah, that guy, the guy that climbs buildings to save the planet. So here's the question. Is Mark Carney going to all of a sudden pivot and become this dirty, greasy oil superpower prime minister overnight? Or is he going to finish what Justin Trudeau started? She cornered Mark Carney brilliantly. If he accepts her demands, he alienates his Liberal base and his climate allies. And if he refuses, she builds the case for Alberta separation. Either way, Alberta wins this narrative. Hey, I could be wrong. Maybe Mark Carney does that 180 turnaround. But if he doesn't, Alberta could say that they tried to work with Canada. And when Ottawa refuses and the blame falls squarely on the Liberals, it's checkmate. It's that checkmate moment. Here are the 4 items, but there's actually 5. The 4 items are: pursue a new Alberta Accord within Canada, demand guaranteed port access, Alberta Energy and Resources. So she wants to have port access north, south, east, calling for the repeal of harmful laws like C-69 and the emissions cap, and requiring Alberta's consent on any export restrictions on their resources. So basically what she wants is Ottawa needs to get the hell out of Alberta's way. And the 5th item is equalization payments. She's saying that Alberta's finished. They're going to have to make it fair for everybody. And the other items are just the timeline and what's going to happen. How is this going to materialize? So she's launching Alberta's next panel to explore long-term options for economic and constitutional protections from Ottawa. And once all this work is done, in 1 year from now, she's going to hold a referendum on key proposals that emerge from these discussions. And one of the proposals may be separation. And she also said the public could bring an initiative for referendum on their own prior to any of this. She will not only acknowledge it, but she's going to put it forwards for Albertans to vote. And on top of all of this, Indigenous rights and treaties with zero compromise. She has a plan, and she has officially rolled it out. I think she's been thinking about this plan for 10 years. Yeah, this is not a plan that she thought of overnight. She's ready. All right, Canada, things are really ramping up with this new government and Mark Carney. I can't wait to provide all of you updates on separation and what's happening in Canada. Now let's move on to Donald Trump. He is the troll master 1000. Every single day, all he loves to do is troll people. Check out what he says about his expectations for the meeting tomorrow with Mark Carney.
They're going to have. Yeah, please.
What's your expectation for your meeting with the Canadian Prime Minister tomorrow?
I don't know. He's coming to see me. I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. Everybody does. They all want to make a deal because we have something that they all want. We have something that they all want. China wants to make a deal very badly. You see what's happening to China. China's being decimated, and I don't want that to happen. But they have to make a fair deal. We were losing hundreds of billions of dollars a year. We were losing think of it, on our trade policies with Biden. We're losing $5 billion a day. I think Josh, as a great businessman, would not let that happen too long, right? How many groups can lose $5 billion a day? If you lose $5 billion one day, that's the end of that company, right? You're fired. He says, you're fired. Get out of here. So we essentially did that, and we have it down to a very low number. We're doing really well. Really well.
So I had a little bit of fun, and I did a poll online, and I said, what's going to happen tomorrow between Carney and Trump at the meeting? I said, is Carney going to get Zelensky? 20% said, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. Absolutely nothing's going to happen. That was number 1 with 44%. New tariffs announced, 10%. And Carney's named governor. That one got actually 25%. You know what? Based on this poll, nobody really knows what's going to happen. But one of the responses I got a pretty kick out of, Chuck Le Canuck says, actual footage of Carney's first meeting with Trump tomorrow. And one of the major talking points to tomorrow's meeting is, I'm sure, going to be the film industry. Let's take a look at this news clip.
Michelle and Nathan, good afternoon. We're here at Pinewood Studios, where major movies like Suicide Squad have been filmed. And this studio, along with many others in Toronto, Vancouver, and right across the globe, they could be devastated by Donald Trump's decision to order 100% tariffs on all productions outside the U.S. You mentioned that Canada is dubbed Hollywood North, and for good reason. Along with the incredible cruise, there are also many government tax credits which lure big productions like The Incredible Hulk to be filmed here. In fact, according to ACTRA, which is the Alliance of Canadian Cinema, Television and Radio Artists, there were more than 400 productions in Ontario alone in 2023, which created 25,000 jobs and spurred $1.8 billion in economic activity. In his rationale for applying this tariff, Donald Trump says productions being drawn to other countries is a national security threat. It's also worth noting that before Trump took the White House, he appointed 3 long-standing supporters as special envoy to Hollywood: Sylvester Stallone, Mel Gibson, and Jon Voight. I want you to take a listen to Mayor Olivia Chow's reaction to Trump's tariff threat, as well as the founder of Prospero Pictures, which is another movie studio in Toronto.
We have a very active film office. We'll come together and come up with a strategy. I am sure the Prime Minister understands the economic benefits that the film industry, not just for Toronto, but also in Vancouver.
What element of the cost of production are you putting a tariff on? How are you calculating this tariff? It's nonsensical. And nevertheless, it may well have a chilling effect on the level of production.
Now, as has been the case with many Trump announcements in the past, it's unclear how these tariffs will actually be implemented. Will they apply to streaming service productions? Also, how will they be calculated if productions are split between the U.S. and other countries?
Yeah, that's a good question. And a lot of this stuff is digital. How do you stop something online from being shared from country to country once it's been created? Think about that. I'm not too sure how he's going to do this. We might learn a couple things tomorrow after the meeting. Okay, I have to show you this Olivia Chow clip because she says, how could they do this? Because Hollywood burned down and they have to rebuild. You just got to see this. It's hilarious.
30,000 jobs with $2.6 billion economic impact. And nowhere else in the world are there places that have this kind of diverse talents that we have right here in the city of Toronto. So it's going to devastate the American film industry. Hollywood need to rebuild because of the fire, but it really shouldn't come and devastate the film industry by doing the 100% tariff. Now,
I don't know what to say. Every time I see Olivia Chow, I just picture her when she's wearing that outfit, that Caribbean outfit. It's like, oh my God. I want to show you guys this stat here. A lot of people online were saying, why would we remove the carbon tax? The companies are just going to take on, they're just going to have even more profits, as if they're going to give those discounts to you and I. So let's just keep them on. Now take a look at this. The red line shows the 18 cents reduction in the price of fuel since April 1st. So now we could put all of those people's comments to rest today. It is cheaper. And the last story of today, who remembers Pierre Poilievre's riding in Carleton with the longest ballot in Canadian history with 91 names? The same clowns who joked around with Canada's democracy is planning on putting 200 names on Pierre Poilievre's ballot, trying to sabotage him in the by-election. You can't make any of this stuff up. This entire thing should be made illegal. How could this even happen in a Canadian democracy? There should be a maximum of 5 names on a ballot. All right, that's it for me today. Tomorrow is a massive day. I'm going to be covering the Donald Trump and Mark Carney's meeting. I hope it's live so that I have video footage of the meeting. Either way, I'm going to be reporting on it. So I will see you on the next report.